Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Ava and I've been an au pair for two different families, and I remember when I first started out that there was a lot of information that I didn't have, and I want to share that knowledge with you guys. So I'm doing this mini series about becoming an au pair, which will eventually lead into being an au pair. So for the first part of this series, I want to look into finding a family. There are many different ways of going about this, but I'm going to stick with two sort of main ones. One is going through an agency and one is finding a family online. There are definitely pros and cons to both. I have done both, and so I definitely know the difference, and one has worked a lot better for me than the other, and I'll share why. So first time around, I went through an agency. I am from the Netherlands, so I signed up with an agency in the Netherlands and had to give out all my information. I had to get like a police background check. I had to get references and send that all to them. Then I had an interview with them talking about what I wanted and stuff like that. After everything was verified, the agency in the Netherlands connected me to an agency here in England, which is where I wanted to go. And they would help me find a family. So basically what happens is you've got au pair organizations in all the different countries, and then and those are connected. And what they do is you have one organization finding the au pairs and then connecting them to the other organization who has all the families. So I got connected to a organization called Smart Au Pairs here in London, and what they did is they asked for what I was looking for, sort of what age group, what area, and then they would send me files from the families with all of their information, the ages of the children, roughly what I could expect to be doing, my sort of my hours, that kind of stuff. And then I would email the agency saying, no, I'm not interested in this family, or yes, I want to have an interview with this family. So my first time around, I was sure that I wanted a family in the countryside, an English family with kids, preferably under the age of 6, because that's what I've worked with mostly, and that is where my passion lies. So that's what I wanted to do. But the agency kept sending me a lot of families that didn't quite match what I was looking for. I always also wanted a family with multiple kids, not just one kid. So after saying no 5, 6, 7 times, I decided, okay, maybe what I'm looking for isn't out there, and maybe I need to adjust what I want and not be so specific. So I ended up saying yes to a few families, and one of them came back to me. This was a French family living in London. They had 3 children and 5-month-old baby, a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old boy. They were all boys. And the 6-year-old had some challenges, so I would be working with him and playing with him to stimulate his development. And this seemed like a really good idea because of my background. And I thought, oh, I'm just going to have fun, play different games. And I'd just done an internship for uni where I did a similar thing. So I thought, this is going to be great. Although it isn't in the countryside, but I guess I get used to London. It isn't an English family, it's a French family, but they said they speak English most of the time, so maybe that isn't a problem. So during the interview, it was mostly them talking about their family from what I can remember, and I did tell a little bit about myself. And I remember at the end of the interview, they said, we want you, have a think about it, but we would really love for you to be our au pair. Now at this point, I had said no to a lot of families, and then I said yes to maybe 2 or 3, and they hadn't gotten back to me. So this was the first family that sort of said yes to me. And me not being so good at saying no, I ended up saying yes. And once I got there, I realised the family wasn't a good fit. The kids are older than I wanted. I wasn't allowed to work with the baby, which there are rules about that here in England. I might get into that in a different video. So I ended up going home after about a month and found a new family, which leads me to my second way of finding a family through online resources. I personally found my second family through Au Pair World, but I also know that a friend of mine found her nanny position through Facebook after being an au pair for 2 years. And I know I've seen online a lot of families also advertising on Facebook saying, hey, this is our family, we're looking for an au pair. It definitely has its pros and its cons, both of them do. For me, going the second time around, I was getting job offers or family offers through my agency still, but the offers that I got, because it wasn't season, it was October, November, not a lot of families were looking anymore because most of them want you to start end of August or beginning of September or January, sorry. So there weren't a lot of offers I was getting from the agency, and everything that I was getting was all that I didn't want, and I knew that I didn't want to do that again, because with my first family I went against everything that I wanted, and I wasn't going to do that a second time around. I wasn't going to make those same mistakes. So with my second family, I decided to just have a look around on Au Pair World, see if there was anything that I found interesting. And I got some job offers, which was really nice. I also emailed a lot of families. I had interviews with multiple families, and eventually I found my current host family, which I've been here since December, sort of. And at this point in time, I'm struggling with the idea that I'm going to have to leave at some point. So yeah, definitely for me, going through Au Pair World worked out better, but that was also because I had a lot of extra knowledge from going through an agency first. So I want to sort of list the pros and cons of both. So one of the pros of going through an agency is definitely the help and the support. When I realised that I had chosen the wrong family, I was able to contact the au pair agency here in England, and they stood by me. They definitely told me, if you're not comfortable, don't feel like you have to stay for a year and feel miserable for a year. And that really helped me. Also, they will be able to help you find a second au pair family if your first one fails. They also do background checks, so you know that you're going to end up in a safe environment. Another pro is that a lot of au pair agencies will be able to help you with a first aid certificate. And a lot of parents actually ask you to have one, which makes sense because you're taking care of their kids. I had gotten mine previously that year, so I didn't have to do it. But that is definitely another pro of going through an agency. There are also definitely cons of going through an agency. One of them is that it's a bit of a longer procedure. You have to get a lot of information, you have to get your police background check, you have to get references, all of that has to be checked by them. And then you get your interview with them, and then you get in contact with the au pair agency in the country of your destination, where you want to go to. And then you have to wait family by family. It is different in different countries. So here in England, you get the au pair agency here in England. They send you 1 or 2 families at a time, and then you email them, yes, I'm interested, no, I'm not interested. It's not the location that I want, or it's not the ages that I want, or I want more or less kids, whatever you want, and then they'll go from there. Which makes all of it a bit of a longer procedure. A second thing is that it is a lot of money. I'm actually going to find out how much. So I am just having a look at the website of the agency that I used, and the program itself, just being an au pair in England, costs €400, and it gets you a few different things. It gets you a workshop, it gets you an interview, a handbook, which I can't remember reading that one, and you can get a travel blog. Yay! And then after you leave, the family picks you up, which makes sense. You get put into a carefully selected host family. You get pocket money, which, yeah, but you don't really pay for that. You get a trusted partner organisation, which is what I talked about earlier, where my au pair organisation in the Netherlands has a partner organisation here in England that found my family, basically. You get access to an au pair. Oh, I remember that. You get access to an au pair website. Basically, you can sort of. So I think it was my agency here in England that sent me like the login details, which meant that I could sort of log in and find where I was, type in my location, and then I would find other au pairs that lived near me. Never really use that. You get an emergency number here in England, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and a certificate of participation. So that's what you get for €400, which is probably about £360. The things that aren't included in those €400, £60 of administration fee. What are they? €60, sorry. It's all in euros. I've been saying pounds too much. A €100 deposit, which you can get back if you complete your entire participation. So if you stay with the family as long as you've said that you would stay. I lost that, so that's €500. The first aid workshop was €25, which I didn't have to do because I'd already done one previously. The travel to England you still have to pay for, or whatever country, to your host family, and travel insurance you still have to pay for. There is so much money just for the company itself. It's €400 for the €395. For the package, then it's €60 administration fee and €100 deposit. So that's €560 that you've lost, that you're not really getting back. It is very expensive, and I think there are different organisations, but a lot of them cost similar amounts. But again, what you get back, the support, the insurance, that if something goes wrong, you've got people to fall back on. For example, if something happens, like your au pair family accuses you of stealing and they want you out of your house, you can contact the emergency number and they will find you a hotel to stay in for the night, or however long you need, until you found your second family. So you do have sort of that safety net. You've got the extra insurance that if something goes wrong, they will be there to help you, which was worth it for me the first time around. But the second time around, especially when I wasn't getting any families that I wanted to stay with, I decided to go with the online version, which has its pros and its cons, of course. So the pros and cons of doing it online via a website like Au Pair World or via Facebook or whatever. Number one is pro, it's free. You're going to save a lot of money getting here. For me, another pro was that there's no rules and regulations. Once I got to England with my first host family, I found out that I, as an au pair, was not allowed to take care of children under the age of 2. Now, I was told by my au pair organisation in the Netherlands that I was allowed to, as long as I had previous experience, which I have, and I like that age, so that's sort of what I wanted. But once I got here, I found out that I wasn't, because as an au pair, you're not allowed to work with children under 2. Going through the website, I didn't have to abide by those rules and regulations, and I was able to find a family with a 1-year-old. So when I started out with this family, the children were 15 months old, a 15-month-old boy and a 4-year-old girl. Now they're 2 and 5. So for me, not having those rules and regulations definitely helped in me finding the family that I was looking for with younger children. So with Au Pair World, I was able to just go online, search through all of the lists and lists and lists of families, go off of what I wanted. I could easily spot, like, no, those kids are too old, no, not enough kids, too many kids. I actually never had that thought. There's never going to be too many kids in a family for me, because I like working with more than one child. Obviously, a main con of going through an online channel rather than an agency is that you've got no one or nothing to fall back on. For me, being in England, that isn't the biggest problem. If something were to happen with this family and I were to be sent away, I can be home in a few hours. I can get a train home, a bus home, a boat home, a plane home, whatever I want. I've got too much luggage for a plane, but I could make my way home, no problem. My parents could come over here if something were to happen with me. They would be here in a few hours. So that definitely isn't a worry for me. So for me, in this case, that's not a con, but I can definitely imagine that that would be a con for a lot of people going on their first adventure as an au pair or going far away. Maybe it's your first time away from home. And although having no rules and regulations can be seen as a pro, which it was for me, it is also a con. Every country has different rules and regulations when it comes to au pairs. I know here in England it is seen more as a cultural exchange program, so you don't get a wage, you get pocket money, but it also means that you can only work a max of, I think, 35 hours. And what I said earlier is you can only work with children aged 2 and up. If you go through an agency, the family has to comply with all of those rules and regulations. If you're going through an online channel, families don't have to do that. So what you hear sometimes is that people have to work very long hours for very little pay. That is a con of going through an online channel. If you go through an online channel, which is fine, you have to make sure that you have a written contract and all of those rules, like the amount of hours that you work, the pay that you get, all has to be written down. There are also rules here in England about the amount of like household work you can do, certain things that you can and can't do. You can do children's laundry, you can't do parents' laundry, all of those things. If you go through an online channel, nobody's there to hold the family accountable for telling you, no, you have to do this or no, you have to do that. So if you go through an online channel, make sure you know your rights, make sure you know what you should at least be paid, and know what, and have that written down. I might get into the rules and regulations for different countries in a different video at some point, because it is a really good thing to know if you're starting out as an au pair, especially if you go through an online channel. So whichever one you choose, going through an agency or going through online channels, it is ultimately up to you. For me, going through online channels worked out better because I got to work with the kids, the ages that I wanted. But ultimately, that was because I had the knowledge of going through an agency. I knew my rights, I knew the rules, I knew what I should and shouldn't be doing in terms of housework and hours and payment. So that all helped in my favour. But ultimately, it is your decision. And I hope that you just find the family that works for you, that has your best interest at heart, just like mine has, that supports you with whatever you want to do. And that is as amazing as my second family, where I'm staying at the moment.